The ashes of betrayal. The dream life that was a lie. Elena Hartwell stood in the center of her beautiful penthouse apartment, staring at the view of the city lights below. At 28 years old, she had everything a woman could dream of. She was a rising star in the fashion world, married to one of the most powerful men in the business, and living a life that seemed straight out of a fairy tale. But tonight, that fairy tale was about to shatter into a million pieces. She held her phone in her trembling hand, reading the text message over and over again. It was from an unknown number, but the words were clear. Your husband is at the Riverside Hotel, room 412. You deserve to know the truth. Elena's heart pounded in her chest. Damien had told her he was working late at the office. He had kissed her forehead that morning and promised to be home by midnight. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to ignore this message and trust her husband. But something deep inside her whispered that she needed to see for herself. The night everything changed. 30 minutes later, Elena stood outside room 412 at the Riverside Hotel. Her hands were cold, her breathing shallow. She raised her fist to knock, but the door was already slightly open. Voices drifted from inside. A man's laugh, deep and familiar, and a woman's giggle that made Elena's blood run cold. She pushed the door open slowly. The sight before her stopped her heart. Damien, her husband of 3 years, was on the bed with Victoria Chun, her best friend since college, her maid of honor, the woman she had trusted with her deepest secrets. They were wrapped in each other's arms, champagne glasses on the nightstand, clothes scattered across the expensive hotel carpet. Elena. Victoria's scream pierced the air as she grabbed the sheet to cover herself. Damien jumped up, his face a mixture of shock and something else. Was it guilt or annoyance? Elena, what are you doing here? What am I doing here? Elena's voice came out as a whisper, then grew stronger. What am I doing here? You're my husband. She's my best friend. How could you? The cruel truth unfolds. Damien didn't even try to look sorry. He reached for his pants, pulling them on with infuriating calmness. Elena, don't be dramatic. You were going to find out eventually. Find out what? Elena felt tears streaming down her face, but she refused to look away. Victoria stood up, wrapping the sheet around herself like a designer gown. There was no shame in her eyes, only a cold satisfaction. Oh, Elena. Soit, inocente Elena. Did you really think Damien married you for love? The words hit Elena like physical blows. What are you talking about? Damien poured himself a glass of champagne, as if they were having a casual conversation. Your designs, Elena. Your brilliant, revolutionary designs. That's what I married you for. You were so eager to fall in love, so desperate to believe that someone like me could want someone like you. Elena staggered backward, gripping the doorframe for support. No. You told me you loved me. You proposed to me. He needed access to your work, Victoria interrupted, her voice sharp and mocking. And I helped him get it. While you were busy playing the happy little wife, we were copying every single design from your private collection. The spring line you've been working on for 2 years? It's already being produced under the Cross Fashion label. Your name won't be anywhere on it. The conspiracy revealed. Elena felt like she was drowning. You've been planning this? Both of you? For how long? Damien smiled, and it was the cruelest smile Elena had ever seen. Since before I proposed. Victoria came to me with the idea. She knew you had talent, knew you were working on something special. We became partners, in business and in other ways. I was never your friend, Victoria said, stepping closer. I was always jealous of you. Your creativity, your pure heart, your stupid optimism. You had the talent, but you were too weak to know what to do with it. So we took it from you. Elena's mind raced. All those late nights when Damien had shown such interest in her work. All those times Victoria had encouraged her to share her sketches, her ideas, her dreams. Every coffee date where Elena had poured out her heart about her designs. It had all been a trap. The divorce papers are already prepared, Damien said casually. You'll sign them tomorrow. You won't fight it because if you do, I'll destroy you. I'll tell everyone in the industry that you stole designs from Cross Fashion. I have lawyers, money and power. You have nothing. the public destruction. The next 3 months were hell on earth. True to his word, Damien filed for divorce and launched a vicious campaign against Elena. He didn't just take her designs, he destroyed her reputation. Articles appeared in fashion magazines claiming Elena Hartwell was a fraud. Anonymous sources said she had stolen ideas from other designers. Her social media accounts were flooded with hateful comments. The fashion company she had worked so hard to build, Hartwell Designs, collapsed when investors pulled out and clients canceled orders. Victoria appeared on morning talk shows, crying fake tears as she talked about how Elena had betrayed their friendship by trying to steal credit for designs that belonged to Cross Fashion. The lies were so convincing that even some of Elena's own employees believed them. Elena tried to fight back. She hired lawyers, but they were no match for Damien's legal team. She tried to speak to journalists, but no one would publish her side of the story. Damien Cross was too powerful, too connected, too rich. The divorce was finalized. Elena received almost nothing. Damien's lawyers had found a way to prove that she had signed a prenuptial agreement that gave her no claim to his wealth or business. She hadn't even remembered signing it, but there it was with her signature at the bottom. Rock bottom. 6 months after that terrible night at the hotel, Elena found herself back in her hometown of Riverside Creek, a small town 3 hours from the city. She had no money, no company, no husband, and no friends. Everything she had worked for was gone. She moved into her late grandmother's old cottage at the edge of town. The place was small and needed repairs, but it was all she had left. The roof leaked when it rained, the heater barely worked, and the wallpaper was peeling. But it was shelter, and right now, that was enough. Elena spent her days doing odd jobs, waitressing at the local diner, cleaning houses, helping at the town's small grocery store. The people who had once seen her as a successful designer now saw her as a failure who had come crawling back home. She lost weight. Her eyes, once bright with dreams, became dull and hollow. She stopped designing, stopped creating, stopped dreaming. What was the point? Every time she picked up a pencil, she remembered how her art had been stolen, how her trust had been broken, how her life had been destroyed. At night, she would lie awake in her grandmother's old bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. She had loved Damien with all her heart. She had trusted Victoria like a sister. And they had used that love and trust to crush her completely. The mysterious stranger. 3 months into her new life of poverty and despair, Elena was working the morning shift at Ruby's diner when a stranger walked in. He was tall, probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair that was just starting to show threads of silver at the temples. He wore an expensive suit that looked completely out of place in the small-town diner, and he carried himself with the kind of confidence that came from success. But it was his eyes that caught Elena's attention. They were a striking gray-blue color, intense and intelligent, and when they landed on her, she felt like he could see straight through to her soul. "Coffee, please," he said, sitting at the counter. "Black, no sugar." Elena poured the coffee, her hands steady despite the curiosity burning in her chest. Men like this didn't come to Riverside Creek. This was a town of farmers, factory workers, and people who had given up on big dreams. "Are you lost?" she asked, setting the cup in front of him. He smiled, and it transformed his serious face. "No. I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm looking for someone, actually. A designer named Elena Hartwell. I heard she might be in this area." Elena's hand froze on the coffee pot. Her heart started racing. Was this another one of Damien's tricks? Another way to hurt her? "Why are you looking for her?" she asked carefully. The stranger pulled out a business card and slid it across the counter. It read, "Marcus Kane, CEO, Phoenix Investments." "Because," Marcus said, his gray-blue eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I have a proposition for her. One that could change her life. And unless I'm very mistaken, I'm looking right at her." The proposition. Elena wanted to lie. She wanted to tell this stranger that he had the wrong person, that Elena Hartwell didn't exist anymore. But something in his eyes stopped her. There was no cruelty there, no deception. Just honest interest and something else, respect. "I don't know what you've heard," Elena said quietly, glancing around to make sure none of the other customers were listening. But Elena Hartwell is finished. She has no company, no reputation, and no future in fashion. Marcus took a sip of his coffee, completely unbothered by her words. That's what everyone thinks. And that's exactly why this is the perfect time. The perfect time for what? For revenge, Marcus said simply. For redemption. For showing everyone who destroyed you that they made a terrible mistake. Elena felt a spark, the first spark of anything other than despair, flicker in her chest. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what they did to me. I know everything, Marcus said, pulling out a tablet and sliding it toward her. On the screen was a detailed file, newspaper articles about her divorce, financial records showing how Damien had stolen her designs, even private emails between Damien and Victoria discussing their plan to destroy her. Elena's hands trembled as she scrolled through the information. How did you get all this? I make it my business to know things, Marcus said. Especially about people who have been wronged by those in power. Elena, I've been watching your case for months. What Damien Cross did to you wasn't just cruel. It was theft, fraud, and emotional abuse. And he's gotten away with it because he has money and connections. So what? Elena said bitterly. That's how the world works. The powerful crush the weak. I learned that lesson the hard way. Marcus leaned forward, his voice dropping to an intense whisper. But what if the weak could become powerful? What if you could rebuild everything he destroyed? What if you could stand in front of Damien Cross and Victoria Chin and watch them realize that they didn't break you? They just made you stronger. The seed of hope. Elena wanted to believe him. Oh, how desperately she wanted to believe him. But hope was dangerous. Hope had gotten her hurt before. Why would you help me? She asked. What do you get out of this? Marcus's expression grew dark for a moment, shadows crossing his handsome face. Let's just say that Damien Cross and I have history. He destroyed someone I cared about, and I've been waiting for the right moment to return the favor. You, Elena Hartwell, are that moment. So you want to use me for your own revenge? No, Marcus said firmly. I want to partner with you for mutual justice. You have the talent, the designs, and the story. I have the money, the connections, and the business knowledge. Together, we can build something that will not only restore your reputation, but also bring down the man who tried to destroy you. Elena's mind was spinning. This was insane. This stranger was offering her a chance at everything she had lost. But could she trust him? Could she trust anyone ever again? I need time to think, she said. Marcus nodded, standing up and placing a generous tip on the counter. Take all the time you need. But Elena, let me tell you something. Right now, Damien Cross is sitting in his office, drinking expensive whiskey, and laughing about how he destroyed you. Victoria Chun is wearing your designs to fashion shows and taking credit for your genius. Every day you wait is another day they win. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Your grandmother's cottage on Maple Street. I'll be there tomorrow evening at 7. If you want to change your life, be there. If you want to stay broken, stay here and keep pouring coffee. The choice is yours. Then he was gone, leaving Elena standing behind the counter with a business card in her hand and a dangerous spark of hope beginning to burn in her heart. The decision. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She paced around the small cottage, Marcus's words echoing in her mind. She pulled out her old sketchbook, the one she hadn't opened since the divorce. The pages were filled with designs she had created before Damien destroyed her life. They were beautiful, innovative, and completely hers. She thought about Damien's cruel smile in that hotel room. She thought about Victoria's mocking voice. She thought about all the people who had believed their lies, who had turned their backs on her, who had watched her fall and done nothing. And then she thought about something her grandmother had told her years ago. Elena, sweetheart, when life burns you down to ashes, you have two choices. You can stay there and blow away with the wind, or you can use those ashes as soil and grow into something stronger than you ever were before. At 6:30 the next evening, Elena showered, put on the one decent dress she still owned, and stood in front of the mirror. The woman looking back at her was thin and tired, with shadows under her eyes. But there was something new there too, a determination she hadn't seen in months. When Marcus Kane knocked on her door at exactly 7 o'clock, Elena opened it and looked him straight in the eye. "I have conditions," she said. Marcus smiled. "I'm listening. I won't become like them. I won't lie, cheat, or steal. We do this the right way, with talent, hard work, and truth." "Agreed. And when this is over, when Damien and Victoria get what they deserve, I want my life back. Not the life I had before, that was built on lies. I want a real life, with real success that nobody can ever take from me." Marcus extended his hand. "Then let's build that life. Together." Elena took his hand, feeling the warmth and strength of his grip. The spark inside her chest burst into flame. She didn't know where this path would lead. She didn't know if she could really rise from the ashes. But for the first time in months, she was willing to try. "When do we start?" she asked. Marcus's smile was fierce and full of promise. "Right now. Welcome to your second chance, Elena Hartwell. Let's show them what a phoenix looks like when she rises." New identity, new beginning. 6 months had passed since Elena shook hands with Marcus Kane and agreed to his proposition. Those 6 months had been the most intense, challenging, and transformative of her entire life. She wasn't the broken woman serving coffee in a small-town diner anymore. She was becoming something entirely different. Marcus had been true to his word. He had invested $2 million into their new venture, but there was one crucial condition. Elena couldn't use her real name. Not yet. If Damien or Victoria discovered what she was doing before they were ready, they would crush her again. This time, she had to strike from the shadows. And so Elena Hartwell became Lena Hart, a mysterious new designer who had emerged seemingly from nowhere, with revolutionary designs and a fresh vision for modern fashion. Marcus had secured a private studio in the industrial district of the city, far from the glamorous fashion quarter where Damien's company operated. The space was raw and beautiful, high ceilings, exposed brick walls, and enormous windows that flooded the room with natural light. "This is your kingdom," Marcus had told her on the first day. "Build your empire here." And build she did. Elena worked 16-hour days, pouring all her pain, anger, and determination into her designs. But these weren't copies of what she had created before. These were evolution. These were better. She had learned from her mistakes, refined her skills, and most importantly, she had nothing left to lose. The mentor's secret. As the months passed, Elena began to notice things about Marcus Kane. He was brilliant in business, ruthless in negotiations, and seemed to know exactly how to navigate the treacherous waters of the fashion industry. But there was pain behind his eyes, old pain that he kept hidden beneath his professional exterior. One late night, as they worked together on a business proposal, Elena finally asked the question that had been haunting her. "Marcus, why are you really doing this? What did Damien Cross do to you?" Marcus stopped typing and stared at his laptop screen for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. 5 years ago, my sister Isabel was an emerging fashion photographer. She was talented, ambitious, and full of life. She got hired to shoot a campaign for Cross Fashion. Damien noticed her, paid attention to her, made her feel special. She fell in love with him. Elena's stomach tightened. She knew where this story was going. "He used her," Marcus continued. "Just like he used you. He got access to all her contacts, her connections in the industry. Then he stole her biggest client. A deal that would have launched her career. When she confronted him, he destroyed her reputation. Told everyone she was unstable, unprofessional, that she had stolen ideas from his company." "What happened to her?" Elena asked softly. Marcus's jaw clenched. She couldn't handle the destruction. She fell into depression, started drinking, lost everything. 2 years ago, she took her own life. She left a note that said she couldn't live in a world where people like Damien Cross always win. Tears filled Elena's eyes. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "I've spent 3 years planning my revenge," Marcus said, finally looking at her. "I've built my wealth, made my connections, and waited for the perfect opportunity. When I heard about what Damien did to you, I knew you were the key. We can give each other what we need. You get your life back, and I get justice for my sister. Elena reached across the table and took his hand. Then let's make sure Isabel's death wasn't in vain. Let's make sure Damien Cross never destroys another person's life. Marcus squeezed her hand, and in that moment, their partnership became something deeper, a shared mission, a mutual promise, and the beginning of something neither of them had expected. The transformation. As Lena Hart's designs began to take shape, Elena realized she needed to transform more than just her name. She needed to become someone Damien and Victoria wouldn't recognize, even if they stood right in front of her. With Marcus's help, she underwent a complete makeover. Her long brown hair, which she had worn the same way for years, was cut into a sleek, sophisticated bob and dyed a rich auburn color. She started working out with a personal trainer, building strength and confidence in her body. She learned to walk differently, talk differently, carry herself with the kind of power she had never possessed before. But the most important transformation was internal. Elena was learning to trust herself again. She was learning that her worth wasn't defined by Damien's approval or Victoria's friendship. She was valuable because of her talent, her mind, and her unbreakable spirit. "You're not the same woman I met in that diner," Marcus observed one day as they reviewed fabric samples. Elena smiled. "No, I'm not. That woman was weak. She let people walk all over her because she was desperate to be loved." "And who are you now?" "I'm someone who loves herself," Elena said firmly. "And that makes me unstoppable." The first strike. 8 months after shaking hands with Marcus, Lena Hart launched her debut collection. They had chosen the perfect venue, an abandoned warehouse that Elena had transformed into an avant-garde fashion show space. The invitations were exclusive, mysterious, and highly coveted. No one knew who Lena Hart was, which made everyone in the fashion world desperate to find out. The show was scheduled for the same night as one of Cross Fashion's major events. Intentionally, Marcus had made sure word spread that Lena Hart's show was the place to be, subtly suggesting that Cross Fashion's event was old news. As guests began arriving, fashion editors, buyers, influencers, and celebrities, Elena watched from behind the scenes. Her heart pounded with anxiety and excitement. This was her moment. This was where she began her rise from the ashes. The lights dimmed. Music filled the warehouse, a haunting, powerful melody that spoke of pain and rebirth. And then the first model appeared. The collection was called Phoenix Rising, though no one knew the personal meaning behind the name. Each piece told a story of transformation. Garments that appeared damaged and torn at first glance but revealed intricate beauty upon closer inspection. The colors progressed from dark grays and blacks to brilliant golds and reds, symbolizing the journey from darkness to light. The audience was mesmerized. Cameras flashed. People whispered excitedly to each other. And in the front row, Elena spotted several major fashion journalists who had previously worked with Damien. Journalists who had published lies about her when she was Elena Hartwell. When the final model walked the runway and the lights came up, the warehouse erupted in applause. It was the kind of standing ovation that launched careers. Elena stepped onto the runway, wearing a simple black dress, her new auburn hair catching the lights. She was unrecognizable from the woman Damien had destroyed. "Thank you," she said into the microphone, her voice steady and strong. "I'm Lena Hart. And this is just the beginning." Cracks in the empire. The morning after Lena Hart's debut show, the fashion world was buzzing. Major publications were calling it the most innovative collection in years. Buyers were lining up to place orders. Social media was flooded with praise. And in his office, Damien Cross was furious. Victoria burst into his office, her face pale. "Did you see the reviews? This nobody designer is stealing all the attention from our spring line." "I don't care about some flash-in-the-pan designer," Damien snapped, but his voice lacked conviction. The truth was Lena Hart's success was bothering him. Several of his biggest buyers had canceled orders to invest in her collection instead. Over the next 3 months, things got worse for Cross Fashion. Marcus, working behind the scenes, had begun using his connections to subtly sabotage Damien's business. Suppliers raised their prices. Factories experienced mysterious delays. Key employees were recruited away with better offers. Meanwhile, Lena Hart's brand continued to soar. Elena opened a flagship store in the most prestigious shopping district in the city, right across the street from Cross Fashion's main boutique. The symbolism was intentional. She hired some of the best people in the industry, talented designers, skilled seamstresses, brilliant marketers. Many of them had been fired or mistreated by Damien at some point in their careers. They joined Lena Hart's team with enthusiasm, eager to work for a designer who treated them with respect. Elena was building more than a fashion company. She was building a movement. Unexpected feelings. Working so closely with Marcus for months had created a bond between Elena and him that neither had anticipated. What started as a business partnership had evolved into a deep friendship, and lately, it was becoming something more. They spent almost every day together, planning strategy, reviewing designs, celebrating victories, and comforting each other during setbacks. Marcus was different from Damien in every way. He listened when Elena spoke. He valued her opinions. He supported her dreams without trying to control them. One evening, after a particularly successful meeting with investors, they were celebrating in Elena's studio. Music played softly in the background, and they were both slightly giddy from champagne and success. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," Elena said, looking at Marcus with genuine gratitude. "Yes, you could have," Marcus replied. "I just gave you the resources. The talent, the vision, the courage. That was all you." Their eyes met, and the air between them changed. Marcus took a step closer, and Elena's heart began to race, not with fear but with anticipation. "Elena," Marcus said softly, using her real name for the first time in months. "I need to tell you something. This started as revenge for my sister. But somewhere along the way, it became about something else. It became about you." "Marcus." Elena whispered. "I'm falling in love with you," he said, his voice raw with honesty. "I know the timing is terrible. I know we have so much left to accomplish. But I can't pretend anymore. Every day I watch you grow stronger, more confident, more beautiful, and I fall harder." Elena felt tears sting her eyes, but they were happy tears. "I'm falling in love with you too," she admitted. "I was afraid to say it because the last time I loved someone, he destroyed me." Marcus cupped her face gently in his hands. "I'm not Damien Cross. I will never use you, betray you, or try to steal from you. You're not just my business partner, Elena. You're my equal, my inspiration. And if you'll let me, I'd like to be the man who stands beside you as you reclaim your throne." They kissed then. A kiss that spoke of new beginnings, healed wounds, and the possibility of love that was real and true. For the first time since her marriage ended, Elena felt her heart opening again. And it felt like coming home. Victoria's suspicion. While Elena and Marcus celebrated their growing success and new relationship, Victoria Chim was beginning to feel uneasy. Something about Lena Hart bothered her, though she couldn't quite put her finger on what it was. She had attended one of Lena Hart's shows. Not because she wanted to, but because Damien had insisted she go and scout the competition. What Victoria saw had disturbed her deeply. The designs were incredible, yes. But there was something familiar about them. Something in the way the fabrics flowed, the way the colors were combined, the innovative techniques used to create texture and dimension. It reminded her of... No. It couldn't be. Elena Hartwell was finished, destroyed, probably still serving coffee in some dead-end town. There was no way she could have created this. No way she could have built an empire in less than a year. But the doubt gnawed at Victoria. She hired a private investigator to look into Lena Hart's background. The results were frustratingly vague. Lena Hart seemed to have appeared from nowhere, with no digital footprint before 8 months ago. Her business was backed by Phoenix Investments, a company owned by someone named Marcus Kane. That name triggered a memory. Victoria pulled out her old files and searched until she found it. A news article from 3 years ago about a fashion photographer named Isabel Kane who had committed suicide after her career was destroyed by unnamed, powerful people in the fashion industry. The article mentioned she had a brother named Marcus Kane who had inherited her estate. Victoria's blood ran cold. Was it possible? Was this all connected? Was Lena Hart somehow related to that photographer's death? She needed to tell Damien. But when she did, He laughed it off. "You're being paranoid," he said dismissively. "Lena Hart is just another talented designer. She'll burn out like all the rest. We're still the biggest name in fashion." But Victoria wasn't convinced. She decided to keep investigating on her own. If there was any chance that their past was coming back to haunt them, she needed to know. The trap is set. A year after Elena had agreed to Marcus's proposition, everything was ready for the final phase of their plan. Lena Hart was now a household name in fashion. She had won awards, been featured on major magazine covers, and built a loyal following of customers and fans. Cross Fashion, meanwhile, was struggling. Their latest collections had been poorly received. Several key designers had quit. Stock prices were falling. Damien was feeling the pressure, though he was too proud to admit it publicly. Marcus and Elena sat in her studio, reviewing their final strategy. "The Fashion Innovation Awards are in 3 weeks, Marcus said. "You're nominated for Designer of the Year. Damien will be there because Cross Fashion is presenting an award. It's the perfect moment." Elena felt her pulse quicken. "You want me to reveal myself there? In front of everyone?" "I want you to destroy him in front of everyone," Marcus corrected. "We have all the evidence of what he did. The stolen designs, the emails with Victoria, the fraudulent prenuptial agreement. We have testimony from people he's wronged. We have everything we need to expose him as a thief and a fraud." "And Victoria?" Marcus smiled grimly. "She's going to be there too. She's been bragging to everyone that she helped discover several designers who are nominated. When the truth comes out, her career will be over too." Elena stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Damien was in his office, believing he had won. Believing Elena Hartwell was still broken and defeated. He had no idea that the phoenix was about to rise, and her fire would burn down everything he had built on lies. "I'm ready," Elena said, turning back to Marcus. "Let's finish this." Marcus stood and wrapped his arms around her. "Are you sure? Once we do this, there's no going back. Your face will be everywhere. You'll be vulnerable again." "The difference is," Elena said, looking up at him with fierce determination, "this time I'm not alone. This time I have someone who truly loves me. And this time, I'm strong enough to face whatever comes." They kissed, sealing their commitment to each other and to their mission. In 3 weeks, the fashion world would witness the most dramatic revelation in its history. The destroyed designer would return, and those who tried to bury her would find themselves buried instead. The phoenix was ready to burn.